The stage collapsed, and Julian instinctively rushed to Vanessa's side, trapped under the rubble. I looked at him, panicking, desperately performing CPR on Vanessa. With a weak voice, Vanessa asked him, "Julian, do you still love me?" Julian didn't speak, but his eyes turned red. He had always been composed, yet now he was so afraid that even his hands were trembling. I closed my eyes, letting the tears slide down, remembering how I asked Julian earlier today if he could come watch my performance. He said he had a surgery and couldn't get away. Julian. This is where we end. Chapter 1. Pushed out of the operating room, the doctor glanced at my leg and asked, "Do you play piano or dance?" I said, "Piano." His tense expression relaxed. "That's good. Your leg will need some time to recover." I looked down at my unharmed hands, then tried to move my leg. My right leg was numb, while the nurse was changing my bandages. I unintentionally overheard their conversation. Sigh. That dancer in the next room. I think she's dating Dr. Julian. You didn't see it, did you? When Dr. Julian carried Vanessa in. The look on his face, he's always cold to women in this hospital. But yesterday he was frantic carrying her in. Some reporters blocked his way, and he shouted at them to get out of the way. Julian had always been calm and indifferent toward everything. I rarely saw him smile. I also rarely saw him lose his temper. The nurse treated my wound gently, even thoughtfully placing a hot water bottle for me. She smiled. "The meds are too cold, and fast 4 drips can hurt. The hot water bottle helps a little. If there's swelling or redness, just call me." I nodded and smiled back at her. Before leaving, she sighed. "This is the first time Dr. Julian's ever taken a leave just to stay and care for Vanessa in the hospital." Left alone in the hospital room, I took out my phone and called Julian. It took a long time before he finally answered. Before I could speak, Julian said, "Selena, I won't be coming back for lunch. I have another surgery." This was the first time Julian had ever called to update me about his schedule, yet it was a lie. Before, I used to cling to Julian, sending him endless messages, nagging in his ear constantly. But the nurse said Julian had taken time off. We've been married for 3 years, and he's worked year-round without rest. Unlike others who are forced to work overtime, he volunteers for it. Every New Year, he'd trade his holiday for Christmas shifts. His co-workers at the hospital were always happy to swap with him. We didn't even have a wedding, let alone a honeymoon. The rumors about Vanessa and Julian were all over the internet. Looking at Vanessa's face online, I suddenly understood why Julian rushed to her without a second thought. I'd been in the hospital for half a month. During that time, Julian called me every day. Same time, same cold tone. "I'm working overtime, not coming home." And every time, I replied, "Okay, got it." The nurses said Julian took a full month's leave for the past half month. He hadn't left Vanessa's hospital room. When the nurses came to change my bandages, I often heard them chatting. Since my leg was injured, I could only lie in bed, except for the occasional caregiver helping me wash up. I was always on that bed, so I took quite an interest in the gossip between the nurses. If the main character in their gossip wasn't the man on my marriage certificate, I might have found it amusing, maybe even bought a milk tea and some popcorn to enjoy the drama. But in this tragic love reunion, Julian was my husband, and I had become the villainous breaking up true love. I just couldn't bring myself to be happy. Chapter 2. Vanessa posted a selfie on social media, wearing a hospital gown. In the corner of the photo, there was an unintentionally revealed glimpse of a man's tall figure and long, distinct fingers. On his wrist was a Rolex Submariner. The strap looked a bit worn. Caption: Don't worry, he's taking great care of me. Immediately, fans and netizens who smelled gossip swarmed into the comments. "Vanessa, is that your boyfriend? Hand fetish heaven, those hands are so beautiful. Perfect for holding mine." Vanessa instantly posted another update to reply to that comment, openly claiming her ownership over Julian, already holding them. She was still in a hospital gown in the photo, clearly taken right then and there. Her fingers were tightly interlaced with Julian's. So, it was that easy for them to hold hands. I remember when I was dating Julian back in college. It felt like we were secret agents meeting in the shadows. He never allowed any public displays of affection. Even my college roommate, Luna, had no idea we were together until graduation. After we registered our marriage, I told her that Julian and I were married. She looked at me in horror. "Are you out of your mind? You've got to be delusional." If it hadn't been for the legally binding marriage certificate, she would have thought I was just another fangirl hopelessly crushing on Julian. During my hospital stay, Luna came to visit. She cautiously asked, "Did you and Julian divorce?" I paused, then calmly replied, "Almost." Luna didn't press further. Before leaving, she patted her chest with a hearty laugh. "You're always welcome to crash at my place." I smiled warmly at her. Late at night, just as I was about to fall asleep, Julian called me again. His voice was the same as always, cold, emotionless, unreadable. "The hospital's really busy lately. I won't be coming home for the next 2 weeks." I responded the same way I always did. "Got it." He didn't know that I could see him through the transparent glass. Standing in the hallway, after that call, Julian never phoned me again. Maybe he figured it was too much trouble calling every day, so he said everything in one go. Sometimes Luna would come push my wheelchair around the garden downstairs. We ran into Julian once. He didn't see me. He was tall and composed, slightly bent as he pushed a woman in a hospital gown. She had fair skin, red lips, white teeth, delicate and gentle-looking. Vanessa was pouting, asking for ice cream. Julian knelt in front of her wheelchair. "It's too cold. You shouldn't eat that." Vanessa clung to his hand and begged. In the end, Julian bought her one anyway. A smudge of ice cream touched the corner of her lips. Julian reached out to wipe it, then stopped and slid his hand back into his pocket. I saw the calm restraint of love in his eyes. Vanessa beamed. "Julian, help me wipe my mouth." Across the crowd, Vanessa's bright smile landed on me. Julian's back was to me. It was in that moment I understood we were separated by mountains, rivers, oceans, and skies. Julian would never buy me an ice cream on a cold winter's day. He wouldn't care if I caught a cold. He would never lean down to wipe away a smudge of ice cream from my lips. He would say, "Selena, wipe it yourself. It's unhygienic." Chapter 3. The attending doctor did a follow-up check on me and gave some precautions. "You'll be discharged next week." I nodded to show I understood. Luna would be on a business trip next week, so I'd need to find someone to help me. Just before leaving, the doctor added, "Remember to go out more in your wheelchair for a little walk." I struggled to wheel myself around the ground floor alone. When I came back to the ward for lunch, I found a photo had gone viral on the trending page. The photo showed Julian's back and Vanessa's face, one from when they were 16 and another from 26. Julian's broad back was hugging Vanessa, while Vanessa was facing the camera. Looking closely, the photo of them at 26 was candidly taken at the hospital. In the background, you could faintly see me pushing my wheelchair with difficulty. The headline read, "The Cold-Tempered Surgeon vs. the Gorgeous Dancer." My heart skipped a beat when I saw that headline. And there was even juicier text. "The drama of breaking up and reuniting is the best to obsess over." So what if they broke up? They're still going to sit at the same table for Lunar New Year's Eve dinner. Reading those words felt like something clicked inside my brain. That old photo Julian always kept in his wallet? It was actually of the little sister brought into his life by his stepmother. We had been married for 3 years, and I knew he had a younger sister, but I'd never seen her. Every time I brought it up, he shut me down. All the fog suddenly lifted. I had secretly liked Julian, and he must have known long ago. Once, after he went out drinking, I followed him in secret. I finally worked up the courage to approach him, but just as I did, he turned around. I quickly turned my head away, my heart pounding like crazy. Behind me came his low, calm voice. "Selena, aren't you bringing me some water? Go on. Give it to me." From that day on, we began interacting more. He had known I liked him for a long time. He confessed to me first. We got together. We got married. All of it happened in less than 6 months, smooth to the point of disbelief. What I thought was a sweet jar of happiness turned out to be a prison that Julian had carefully crafted for me. He married me because he was in love with Vanessa. His ridiculous sense of morality told him he couldn't cross the line with Vanessa. Their parents had forced them apart. Vanessa went abroad. He stayed here for graduate school. He needed someone who could quickly make him forget Vanessa, someone who could reassure his parents. And I was the one who walked into the trap willingly. I pieced all of this together from Vanessa's social media posts. It was the end of the year. I searched all over the internet, but no one was willing to take my job request. Most people thought it was bad luck to go to the hospital at the end of the year. Even when I offered triple the price, no one contacted me, so I had no choice but to stay in the hospital a few more days. Until Luna came back. The hospital was short on beds, and a new patient moved into the room next to mine. An elderly man. He moved quickly, more agile than me. He smiled and asked, "All alone, young lady?" I nodded. Yes. I hadn't gone through with the discharge process yet, and now the hospital was short on rooms. The attending doctor and nurses had urged me several times. I looked embarrassed and felt full of guilt. "I'll be out soon. My friend is almost here." One of the nurses, about my age, had seen me alone every day and sighed deeply. "All right. It's okay. At most. Just one more day. I'll ask the doctor to be lenient." She must have seen the panic and helplessness on my face, because she smiled, winked, and mouthed to me, "Stay as long as you need. Don't worry." Chapter 4. The next day, Luna got stuck at the airport and still hadn't arrived. Meanwhile, a new patient was brought into the hospital. I heard a familiar male voice growling low at the door. "What are you still doing in the hospital? You think this place is your home or something?" I was terribly embarrassed. I scrambled to pack up my things, sitting in my wheelchair, trying to push all the bags to the doorway. The elderly woman sharing the ward with me couldn't bear to watch anymore and helped me carry some things. When I opened the door, a stern face appeared in front of me. The man had a tall nose bridge and furrowed brows. He looked utterly impatient. In a low voice, he questioned me, "Do you know how short we are on beds right now? You've overstayed by a whole week. Do you really think this is your home?" I froze for a moment when I saw his face. It was Julian. He was holding a suitcase in his right hand, wearing casual clothes. He stood beside Vanessa, who was clinging to his arm. I had a mask on, and my face turned even more awkward. I lowered my head and said softly, "Got it." Embarrassed and flustered, I wheeled my belongings out into the hallway. My things were scattered everywhere. Just then, the kind little nurse called my name. "Selena, let me help you. My shift is over." Julian suddenly grabbed my wheelchair and with his long legs stepped in front of me. Our eyes met, and only then did Julian realize who I was. He froze. I gave a small, forced smile. The nurse was really kind and kept asking, "Selena, where's your husband? Your chart says you're married." I looked up at Julian. After 3 years of marriage, none of Julian's coworkers even knew he had a wife. I smiled and said, "I'm not married. That was a mistake in the paperwork." Julian tried to step forward, but Vanessa pulled him back by the hand. I wheeled myself into the elevator. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of panic in his eyes. Right before the doors shut, he suddenly rushed forward and shouted my name. "Selena, wait!" I pressed the button for the first floor. He reached out in a hurry to stop the doors but accidentally got his hand caught. Julian winced and quickly pulled his hand back just as the doors shut. His eyes, before disappearing from view, were full of confusion and disbelief. When I got in the car, he started messaging me. The chat history was filled with a wall of green, my own messages. Talking and talking, but the messages stopped a month ago. Back then, he used to complain that I talked too much. When he was cooking, I'd stand beside him and say, "Hey, let me tell you what happened at work yesterday." Before I could even finish, he'd turn and look at me. "Selena, can you be quiet?" I'd say, "Oh, okay." From now on, I won't annoy him anymore. I finally saw where I stood in his heart. Julian sent me a message. "Wait for me. Don't go anywhere." I didn't reply. Back home, I tried slowly walking while holding onto the furniture. I was starting to regain some feeling in my legs. The doctor said I would have to say goodbye to most physical activities. Being able to walk and maybe jog would already be a miracle. In that month in the hospital, I had already come to terms with not being able to jump, hike, or do anything intense ever again. And that Julian never truly loved me. I was almost asleep when I was woken up. Julian came home. his shoulders dotted with tiny snowflakes, the first snow of the year. I lay in bed as he stood there with a bag in his hand. His face was slightly flushed, and he was breathing in short, quick gasps. He must have run up. He looked at me, his lips opened slightly as if to speak, but then he closed them again. After a pause, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me you were hospitalized? When did it happen?" The room lights came on suddenly. My eyes squinted at the brightness as I looked at him. "A month ago." His body stiffened slightly, as if trying to register how long ago that was. His gaze landed on me, pupils contracting sharply. He questioned with disbelief. "A month ago? When you had that performance?" I nodded and yawned, exhaustion washing over me. "Turn off the lights. I'm going to sleep." Julian suddenly asked, "Why didn't you leave the light on for me tonight?" I couldn't help but laugh softly at that. "Yeah, why would I?" For 3 years, I left dinner on the table and a light on for him when he worked late. That was all just me trying to feel something, touching myself with my own gestures. 3 years of that didn't even melt one block of ice. "I'm done trying. I'm tired. Turn it off." The air grew heavy with silence. After a while, he turned off the light. Chapter 5. In the early morning, Julian surprisingly didn't go for his usual run. Seeing him sitting at the dining table downstairs made me feel a bit dazed. I was holding onto the stair railing when he quickly came over, crouched down, and effortlessly picked me up into his arms. His tall figure was a full head taller than mine. I used to love clinging to him, walking hand in hand with our fingers intertwined down the street. Now, he reached for my hand and silently lifted me up. But instead of feeling sweet, I felt awkward. I quickly grabbed his wrist. I can walk by myself. Thank you." He gently set me down and helped me over to the dining table. He sat across from me, slowly eating his toast. I lowered my head to drink my milk, but the gaze from above made me feel unsettled. I forced a casual smile and looked at him. "Aren't you going to work? You should go. You'll be late." Compared to me, he was calm and composed. He sipped his coffee lightly. "I asked your attending doctor for your report. I'll take you to your follow-up later." "Take me to my follow-up? What about Vanessa?" I quickly declined. "No need. I can go next week." His voice turned cold. "Next week? My schedule's packed with surgeries next week." I shook my head. "It's okay. I can go by myself next week." His expression suddenly turned a bit colder, so I changed my tune. "All right. Then just drop me off on your way." After breakfast, we headed out to the car. Julian took a phone call, his brows tightly furrowed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Don't panic. I'm coming right now." He looked down at me in the wheelchair, his eyes filled with urgency. "Selena, something came up. I'll take you home first." He started pushing my wheelchair, but I stopped him by pressing on his hand. "Go ahead. I'll be fine." I turned around and wheeled myself back home. He stood behind me, and his voice echoed faintly in the parking garage. I couldn't make out what he said. The car roared as it sped out of the garage, leaving only exhaust behind. The only one who could throw him off like that was Vanessa. The day the stage collapsed, I saw, for the first time, such a complicated look in his eyes. There was fear, panic, anxiety, and a cautious, repressed kind of love. Mouths can lie, but reddened eyes cannot. In front of me, he had always been composed, as though nothing in the world could throw him off balance. Chapter 6. I requested a 1-month leave from work. In my wheelchair, I went to a law firm for a consultation. My relationship with Julian was fairly simple. It was just that he used me to avoid his feelings for his stepmother's daughter. I was the shield he used to put his parents at ease. Thankfully, we never had children. It was the first time I truly felt grateful that Julian had always refused to have kids after we got married. After I contacted the lawyer, Luna came to pick me up and took me around to look at apartments. After the tours, she brought me back home. Looking around at the furnishings in the house, I felt dazed. Ever since I found out about Julian and Vanessa, everything he did seemed somehow tied to her in my eyes. When Julian got home, I had already finished dinner. His shoulders were again dusted with tiny white snowflakes. He was holding a box of desserts in his hand. This particular dessert was notoriously hard to get, limited daily quantity. Before he came home, I had already seen on Vanessa's social media what he had done all day. Vanessa had fallen at home that morning. As soon as he got the call, he rushed to her. Then he spent the day helping her with her rehab in the park. And he even went across districts just to buy her favorite dessert. Julian placed the dessert in front of me, and his tone softened. I remember you don't like desserts with too much cream. You prefer taro. I nodded. Thank you. I didn't like taro. I liked desserts with lots of cream. When we were together, Julian would give me gifts on every holiday, buy me little cakes, and make brown sugar water for me. Those gestures once made me believe he had real feelings for me. But now, even the last shred of that illusion was shattered. Today, Vanessa posted a photo with the caption, "My favorite creamy little cake, and my favorite person." I liked cream, but Julian brought me taro. I liked bubble tea with full sugar and ice. He would always switch it to warm and half sugar. On our first date, when I told him I wanted a cream cake and iced milk tea, Julian had paused, because the things I liked were the same things Vanessa liked. Mentioning them would only remind him of her, so he replaced the cream cake with taro cake. Even the red sugar tea he made for my cramps, Vanessa had been the one who taught him that. Julian took off his coat, rushed into the kitchen, and quickly boiled a cup of brown sugar ginger tea. I looked at him, confused. Was he really going out this late to bring it to Vanessa? What a deeply devoted man. A delivery app could have done the job. Not long ago, Vanessa had posted another suggestive update. That time of the month again. Suddenly, those beautiful hands with long, clean fingers appeared before me. He gently set down the cup. I looked up at him. Julian's brow arched slightly. Almost forgot. You're on your period today. I looked into those deep black eyes. Julian, my period is pretty regular. It's always at the end of the month. His expression froze, his eyes showing a flash of confusion. He stood there stunned for a moment before snapping out of it. 3 whole years of being with him, and only now did I realize why he always made brown sugar tea for me around mid-month. He only remembered Vanessa's. Julian's thin lips parted slightly, then closed again. It took him a long time to finally speak. I remembered it wrong. He tried to feed me a piece of the cake himself. I said, Julian, actually, I also like cakes with lots of cream. He stood there, dazed, then quickly grabbed his coat. Selena, I'll go get you one. Wait for me at home, okay? It was snowing outside, and many stores had already closed. 3 hours later, he finally came home. I was drinking water when suddenly a pair of strong arms wrapped tightly around me from behind. His voice was low and hoarse. Selena, I bought the flavor you like. Come on, eat it. His eyes sparkled with hope as he looked at me. But Julian, I said gently, I don't want it anymore. He looked down awkwardly at my legs, fumbling for something to say. You still haven't told me how your legs got injured? I slipped out of his embrace, turned slightly, and smiled faintly as I looked at him. Julian, the day I invited you to my performance, the stage collapsed, and I was pinned under an advertising board. That's how I got hurt. He looked up sharply, meeting my gaze. Compared to his shock, I seemed far calmer. In that instant, his face turned pale. That invitation card was still lying on the coffee table. That day, Julian had held it between 2 fingers, glanced at it, and was about to say something, but when he noticed the date, he let out a small chuckle and quickly changed his words. I won't be free that day. The hospital has me scheduled non-stop. Disheartened, I went to the piano recital alone. While I waited backstage for my turn, I saw a familiar face in the audience. My heart swelled, like it had been soaked in honey. I was secretly overjoyed. He had come to see me perform, quietly. Just as I was about to message him, the stage collapsed. When the billboard came crashing down, my mind went completely blank. Julian ran toward the stage. I thought he was running toward me. Within seconds, performers on the stage were crushed beneath the board. The crowd below erupted into chaos. And in that chaos, Julian rushed straight to Vanessa. His expression was frantic, his eyes already red. Because he arrived quickly, Vanessa wasn't completely crushed by the billboard. Her face was pale as a ghost. Julian didn't look much better. In a weak voice, she asked, Julian, do you still love me? And then she fainted. Seeing Julian panic, lose his composure completely, I understood. I understood everything. Chapter 7. Julian grabbed my arm tightly and forcefully pried open my fingers, intertwining them with his. Selena. Vanessa is my sister, my stepmother's daughter. I raised my eyebrows slightly. Your sister? Huh? I've never even met her. His grip tightened more and more. I struggled. Julian, you're hurting me. I pulled away and went back to the bedroom on my own. He stood at the foot of the bed, his voice trembling slightly. Selena, I'll let you meet her sometime, okay? You've always wanted to travel. How about this new year? I take you to the Maldives to see the ocean? I pulled the blanket over myself and agreed softly. But honestly, there was no point in meeting her anymore. We had gotten a marriage certificate, but no wedding, no dress, just a meal with our parents. Back then, I never met any of his relatives, not even his so-called sister. The next morning, I woke up to breakfast laid out neatly on the table. Julian had sent me a few messages. Don't forget breakfast. Wait for me after work. I'll take you to the park for your rehab walk. I finished meeting with the lawyer, scheduled a showing with a real estate agent, and put down a deposit. On the way back, I passed through a park, and a large dog suddenly barked loudly at me. Snow-white fur, pitch-black eyes. My pupils contracted instantly when I saw the dog. Then I saw the owner. The first time I'd been bitten by a dog, it was this Samoyed. When Julian and I were living together, that big dog had come charging at me, barking wildly. It stared at me, full of wariness. Julian lowered his eyes and smiled gently. 12. Sit. The dog reluctantly sat down, but its eyes kept following me. I was terrified of dogs. When Julian wasn't home, this dog would bare its teeth at me, burst out of the cage, and pounce on me. I stepped on its tail out of fear, probably hurt it. It howled in pain and crashed around the room. When Julian came back and saw the scene, blood on the floor, the dog lying down with a bleeding tail, he immediately turned to me, eyes filled with anger. Selena, did you hurt it? His furious expression made my mind go completely blank. He rushed to pick up the Samoyed, stroking its fur and soothing it. It's okay. Daddy's taking you to the hospital. The blood on the floor was mine. When they came back, the Samoyed cowered behind Julian, its face drooping. Julian looked slightly guilty. Sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I forced a smile and shook my head. He bandaged my wounds, took me to get vaccinated, and eventually sent the dog away. Now, Vanessa walked toward me, holding that same Samoyed on a leash. She looked like she had recovered well. My heart clenched. I instinctively took a few steps back in fear. She smiled brightly, her figure slim and graceful, and she took the initiative to talk to me. We both knew the truth, yet neither of us said it out loud. Pretty, isn't she? My partner and I raised this dog together, standing by the riverside. She said, my parents never approved of us being together, but he said it didn't matter. He'd take me away. As long as we love each other, we can get through anything. My major required further studies abroad, but he didn't hesitate at all. He bought a house overseas and wanted to quit his top-tier job to start a new life with me from scratch. I listened quietly as she spoke. Julian was tearing my heart apart piece by piece, and I never imagined I could face it all so calmly. I thought I'd be heartbroken, shattered, unwilling to let go, but I didn't want to upset my parents. She said, so I was the one who gave him up. When I left him so coldly and walked away, he said he hated me, said he'd never see me again in this life. Yet every New Year while I was abroad, he came to visit me. He said he couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to hate me. Even my biological parents thought flying overseas was too tiring and stopped visiting. But he gave up all his assets and resources back home just to be with me and start over from scratch. From Vanessa's words, I finally understood why Julian never spent New Year's with me, why he always took his annual leave around Christmas to fly overseas. It was to be with Vanessa, to keep her from feeling lonely. After she finished speaking, she raised her arched brows and beamed brightly. And what about you? You haven't said anything yet. I smiled gently. You'll be with the one you love very soon. Vanessa had a habit of filming vlogs and posting updates, so she recorded our entire conversation. I'm getting a divorce. I wish you and Julian happiness. I figured she'd definitely post it, and I was betting that Julian would definitely hear it. Chapter 8. My legs had almost fully recovered. I went to the hospital for a follow-up, and the doctor changed my dressing. The nurse helping me was the same young nurse who had taken care of me during my previous stay. After she stepped out, Julian suddenly pushed the door open. The first thing I saw was his white lab coat, followed by his grim face. When he saw me, he let out a breath of relief and pulled me tightly into his arms. "Why weren't you answering your phone?" I suddenly remembered I'd turned it off. "Have you eaten? I'm getting off work now. There's a new restaurant nearby that's supposed to be pretty good. Want to go together?" I pushed him away. "You're busy with work. I don't want to get in your way." But he clasped my hand firmly and, without giving me a choice, dragged me toward the elevator. His movements were quick and decisive, as if afraid I'd slip away. At the restaurant, his gaze never left me. "Selena." I invited Vanessa too. She's my sister, my stepmother's daughter. When Vanessa arrived, we exchanged a smile. She greeted me warmly and hugged me. "Nice to see you again, Selena." Julian's expression stiffened, and Vanessa's lips turned pale. He moved awkwardly, gripping my hand tighter and tighter, his large palm wrapped around mine, fingers pressing firmly on my fingertips. "Selena, this is my sister, Vanessa." Then, turning to Vanessa, he added, "Vanessa, this is my wife, your sister-in-law. Her name is Selena." Julian began peeling shrimp for me. Vanessa pouted. "I want some too. Didn't you say you'd only ever peel shrimp for me?" Julian's hand paused in midair, then resumed peeling slowly and carefully. He looked up at her and said, "Vanessa, stop it." Julian had always had a thing about cleanliness, except in the operating room. He never liked peeling shrimp, not even for me. This was the first time. Vanessa and I locked eyes. Hers were full of challenge. Mine were calm. After dinner, Vanessa insisted Julian drive her home. He looked down at me, arm wrapped around my waist, her legs still recovering. "It's too cold to leave her outside in the wind. I'll call a car for you. Mom and Dad said they'd really like to see you." Watching Julian act like this, I found it amusing. He guided me into the car and said, "Selena, I've booked the tickets. We're going to the Maldives for New Year's. And when we get back, we'll take our wedding photos. Then we'll finally have a proper ceremony." When I didn't respond, he squeezed my hand gently. The heater was warm in the car. Just as he started the engine, I turned to him. "Julian, pretending like this with you is exhausting. Find someone else." The hum of the engine abruptly ceased. His hands rested on the steering wheel. He slowly turned his head toward me. "Selena, what are you saying?" I took a deep breath and smiled as I said, "Julian, using me to make her jealous, this little act is getting old. I can see clearly now that you two love each other. Don't waste my time anymore. Let's get a divorce." Julian completely panicked. His heart was pounding out of rhythm. His lips pressed tightly together, and his usually calm, cool voice had gone hoarse. "Selena, I don't agree." Chapter 9. I spoke calmly. "Julian, do I really need to spell it out for you? I saw your white Samoyed. It was following behind Vanessa. You were so furious, jumping to conclusions and thinking I heard it. You've never truly been able to let go of Vanessa. I invited you to my piano performance, and you said no. But backstage that day, I saw you. I thought you'd come in secret just to support me. The bouquet of roses by your side, I thought it was for me. I felt this quiet joy until the moment the billboard collapsed and you ran toward Vanessa. That was the end of us. While I was in the hospital, you told me you were working late, that you couldn't come home. But then I overheard a nurse say you had taken a full month off to care for Vanessa. You, who always treat work as 99% of your life, actually took a month off for her. You didn't know that every time you lied to me on the phone, I would end up running into you, pushing her wheelchair around the hospital garden under the sun. Julian's face turned completely pale. He was flustered, scrambling for something to say, his eyes growing misty at the corners. Her first performance after returning home, she invited me before you did. I was afraid of turning you down, of making you overthink, so I lied. The thing with the hospital, that was my fault. I didn't know you were hurt too. If I could go back, I wouldn't have gone to her show. The last time I saw her, I told her clearly, outside of our parents' presence, we shouldn't meet again. My parents divorced when I was a kid, and after my father remarried, he barely paid attention to me because of that broken family. She and I grew up together. We didn't understand boundaries. Our feelings were always vague. But after marrying you, I realized what I felt for you was love. I listened quietly as he finished. I understand now, Julian. As I stepped out of the car, he suddenly wrapped his arms around me tightly, burying his face in my shoulder and crying, Selena. I already said everything clearly to her the last time. Please, don't leave me. I'm begging you. He held me close, but I no longer felt that burning heartbeat that once meant I had fallen for someone. I pushed him away. Julian, stop this. I gave you 3 years. It's too late now. When I got home, my luggage had already been packed. Seeing the empty house, Julian stood frozen for a moment. Then he gave a hollow laugh and burst into tears. Selena, you planned to leave me all along, didn't you? He pulled out a sheet of paper from his pocket, flight tickets and hotel reservations booked long ago. Also, a wedding photo studio appointment, and a wedding date set for March of next year. The booking date? The day I invited him to my piano recital. He fumbled to show it to me, hands trembling slightly, even his knees shaking. It's too late, Julian. We've walked this far together. This is where our road ends. I moved out, clean and certain. Chapter 10. I gradually returned to work, performing in small-scale concerts. Julian refused to sign the divorce papers, so we dragged it out like this. Next year, I planned to move abroad. At every single performance, Julian never missed a show. He stood in the audience, and for the first time, I could read love in his eyes. But I felt nothing. During my final performance in China that year, I was almost crushed by another falling billboard. The one playing the piano on stage wasn't me, it was my junior from the conservatory. Julian was under the billboard too, holding a bouquet of roses and looking at me. The moment it came crashing down, I shouted my junior's name and ran toward him. Just in time, the billboard nearly came down on us. When I opened my eyes again, Julian was holding it up with his bare hands. His face was flushed, veins bulging in his arms. A layer of cold sweat covered his forehead. The searing pain made him gasp, and he growled, Selena, get out, now! I pulled my junior and ran. With a thunderous crash, the billboard fell. Julian was taken to the hospital. His hand was broken. He could never lift heavy things again, not even hold a position for too long. The hands that I had once been so proud of could no longer save lives. Vanessa came to find me, furious. Selena, if it wasn't for you, his hand wouldn't be ruined. I was teaching a student piano at the time. I paused slightly, looked at her, and said, I'll go thank him. After the lesson, I brought some tonic and went to see him, standing at the doorway. As soon as he saw me, Julian quickly sat up. We stared at each other for a long time. It had been a year since we last looked at each other like this. But now, there was no affection in my eyes, while his gaze was lit with hope. Julian, thank you for saving me. But when are we finalizing the divorce? He froze. After a very long pause, his eyes slowly reddened. His voice was hoarse. Selena, the moment I saw you running toward someone else, I felt the stabbing pain in my chest. It hurt so much I could barely breathe. And yet, more than the pain, I was terrified that the billboard would crush you. I knew, later, an expert assessment revealed it would have taken 10 grown men to hold that billboard up. Julian held it alone. His adrenaline had kicked in at full force. But now I understand how much it hurt you when I ran toward Vanessa that day. I still held on to a sliver of hope until I saw that video of you and Vanessa talking. When you told her, I wish you and Julian happiness. To hear those words from your mouth, blessing me and someone else, it almost killed me. His eyes shimmered, every wound in his body and heart screaming in pain. He lowered his gaze and reached out his hand. Give it to me. I'll sign. Selena. I'm sorry. As I turned to leave, he called out to me, his voice trembling with reluctance. Selena, don't listen to them. My hand, I chose this. You don't have to feel guilty. It's all my fault. If it had been anyone else under that billboard, I still would have done everything I could to help. But because it was you, I gave everything I had. Julian, this is where our journey ends. Outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, Luna held a pack of beers and waved excitedly at me. The sky was turning blue, the sunlight dazzling and warm. We sat on the grass in the park, the crisp clink of cans colliding, a toast to the beginning of my new life. Story 2. Chapter 1. Before. I never understood why people said you can choose not to marry someone your parents arrange for you, but you should definitely avoid marrying someone they disapprove of. It wasn't until after I got married that I realized how much foresight there was in that saying. Sam was my colleague. He was gentle and considerate, and I fell deeply in love with him, unable to pull myself out. After I married him, I did enjoy a period of what I believed was happiness. But then, my life changed. When Sam got home from work, he kicked off his shoes, lay down on the couch, and started playing on his phone. "Honey, I'm exhausted. Hurry and make dinner." I loved him deeply, so I didn't care that I had just come home from work too, equally tired. I pushed through the exhaustion to make him dinner. After setting the food on the table, Sam remained in the same position, still glued to his phone. "Honey, dinner's ready," I said. When we had just gotten married, I would cook, and Sam would stand behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, saying, "You're working too hard. Honey, why don't you quit your job? I'll take care of you." I was deeply moved, feeling like the happiest person in the world. But before the warmth of that happiness even faded, Sam became a different person. We went to work and came home together, but once he got home, he just lay around, glued to his phone, refusing to lift a finger around the house. If he was thirsty, he'd call out, "Honey, get me some water." If he was hungry, he'd say, "Honey, hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving." He was always attached to his phone, holding it while eating, in the bathroom, and even in bed. His eyes were practically glued to the screen. One day, I had terrible menstrual cramps. On the way home, I said to Sam, "Could you make dinner tonight? My stomach really hurts." Sam wore a scowl the whole way home, and when we got there, he snapped, "Miriam, I asked my mom already. Menstrual cramps aren't even an illness. You're just lazy. Do more housework, and you'll be fine." My lower abdomen felt as cold as ice, the sharp pain twisting like a spoon stirring inside me. Every step I took was excruciating. All I wanted was to crawl into bed, hug a hot water bottle, or even just have a cup of warm ginger tea. Curled up in bed, the intense pain left me unable to move. But Sam got angry, reaching out to grab me. "Miriam, didn't you hear me? Are you pretending your stomach hurts just so you don't have to cook? Every woman has her period. Why are you being so dramatic?" When we were dating, I'd get cramps, and Sam would bring me a warm ginger tea, his eyes red with concern as he saw me trembling in pain. With heartfelt emotion, he'd say, "If only I could take the pain for you. It breaks my heart to see you like this." That memory feels like it happened just yesterday. Now, as I watch Sam pull at me, his mouth opening and closing, I no longer have the energy to argue. "Could you please just order takeout?" The moment Sam heard the word takeout, he yanked me even harder, almost dragging me to the floor. "My mom says takeout isn't healthy. Restaurants don't even wash their vegetables properly. What's your problem? Are you trying to curse me to death?" My mind went completely blank. When we were dating, Sam was always the most enthusiastic about choosing takeout when I couldn't decide. Sometimes, even when I didn't feel like eating out, he'd grab my phone and order for me. Now, why does ordering takeout seem like it's going to kill him? I could barely get up to cook, let alone crawl back into bed. Chapter 2. Sam kicked me a few times before slamming the door and heading to the living room. As he walked away, I heard him on the phone, "Mom, that damn woman wouldn't make me dinner. I'm coming over to eat now." "You're right. I shouldn't have spoiled her." Shivering, I reached for my phone and dialed my brother's number. The call connected quickly, and my brother's gentle voice came through. "Miriam, what's wrong?" I forced myself to sound calm and softly said, "It feels like I haven't seen you in a long time." "Brother." "Miriam, your voice sounds off. Did something happen?" My brother paused for a moment, then asked, "Where's Sam?" Hearing his concern, I couldn't hold back my tears. Sam went to his mom's for dinner. Brother, I've been deceived. Sam's a complete mama's boy. My stomach hurts so badly. And not only did he not care, he even hit me. Wait there. I'll be right over. My brother's voice was filled with rage. Don't tell mom and dad just yet, I cautioned. Although they never liked Sam, I had insisted on marrying him, and they eventually relented. I lay on the cold floor for a while, gathering my strength before slowly crawling to my feet and shuffling out of the bedroom. My brother lived nearby, so it wouldn't take him long to drive over. I needed to unlock the door for him. When I opened the door, I had already used up all my strength. Seeing the state I was in, he rushed to support me. Should we go to the hospital? Going to the hospital won't help menstrual cramps. All I need is a hot water bottle and a cup of warm ginger tea, and I'll feel better after that. I couldn't stand straight from the pain, so I leaned on my brother's arm and sat down. You're in this much pain, and Sam didn't even care? He just went to his mom's for dinner? My brother glanced around the rooms, stopping at the kitchen door where the pots were cold and untouched. His face darkened with anger. I'm going to find him. Brother, don't. Just help me fill the hot water bottle first. I pointed to the drawer where it was kept, watching him, with his face tense and veins popping in frustration as he boiled water and filled the hot water bottle. My nose suddenly stung with the urge to cry. He handed me the hot water bottle and poured me a cup of hot water. Is this enough? Holding the hot water bottle, I felt warmth return to my icy abdomen, and the intense pain began to ease. It's much better now. My brother paced the room angrily. This isn't going to be a one-time thing. Do you get cramps this badly every month? When he saw me nod, his face darkened even more. You won't let me go after that bastard Sam. And you don't want me to tell mom and dad. Are you really planning to keep living like this? He hit you too, didn't he? I gently brushed the spots where Sam had kicked me. Brother, I know I can't keep living like this, but I don't want to let him off so easily. Sam and I worked at the same company, and I'd been covering for him on a lot of tasks he couldn't finish. His performance has been climbing steadily thanks to my help, but his attitude toward me at home has been getting worse by the day. With my help, he's been promoted several times, and most of his current work is essentially done by me. Hearing this, my brother calmed down and sat beside me. So, what's your plan? I want to quit first, find a new job, and then get a divorce, I said, laying out my plan. Sam isn't good at his job, and as long as he treated me well, I was willing to help him because I did it willingly. Sam is a mama's boy. As long as he could maintain the love and care he showed me when we got married, I could tolerate it. But, Chapter 3, Sam wasn't just a mama's boy, he also hit me. Following his mother's instructions, domestic violence happens either 0 times or countless times. What kind of plan is that? It doesn't do any real damage to Sam. At least you weren't foolish enough to hand over the dowry to him and his mother, my brother said, glaring at me with frustration. You're the perfect example of someone who ignores advice and ends up suffering for it. I sighed. The company Sam and I work for is at a critical point for his promotion. Without my help, there's no way he can get promoted. He can't even handle his current position on his own. If I quit and take another job, what do you think that means for him? Knocking him back down to where he started is the biggest punishment. If I push him back to square one, I want to see how far he can climb without my help now that he's reached this level. Without his current position, Sam won't be able to pay off the mortgage or the car loan. Just stick to your plan, but don't regret it later and decide not to get a divorce, my brother said. Now understanding my intention, the pain in my abdomen had eased, so I stood up and went to the kitchen to find some ginger sugar, putting it in a cup of hot water. I never imagined that in my married life, I wouldn't even be able to get a cup of warm water. Get ready. I'll take you out for dinner, my brother said, glancing at his watch. He'll be back soon. I'll just order takeout. Thanks, brother. With my work experience, could I join your company? After finally uttering the word divorce, I had a new plan. I'd been blind when it came to marriage, but I couldn't afford to be without a job. My company and Sam's are in the same industry. According to the rules, you can't join a competing firm right after quitting, depending on what your contract says. My brother replied, That's not an issue. I'm just a regular clerk. so the contract doesn't impose any restrictions. I've gone over it carefully. I said, when it comes to work, I've never been careless. The only place I had been blind was in helping Sam tirelessly, bringing him to where he is today. As long as you keep your head straight, it'll be fine. With you being my sister, you can enter my company, but once you're in, I won't bend the rules to help you, my brother said, seeing I wasn't keen on going out to eat. He talked with me for a bit and we agreed on a secret check-in phrase. He was worried that once I quit, Sam might try to restrict my freedom. After my brother left, I finished my ginger tea and ordered some takeout. I had been craving spicy and flavorful boiled fish for a while. Sam doesn't eat spicy food, so I always had to settle for bland meals to accommodate him. Sam came home very late, reeking of alcohol. When he saw me, he slammed the door harshly. You useless hen that can't even lay eggs. An overwhelming chill swept over me. I've been doing the work of two people, and having a child was never part of our plan. But to Sam, in the end, I was just a hen that can't lay eggs. I was so angry I wanted to cry. Watching him collapse onto the couch like a pile of mud, I forced myself to hold back my tears. In the past, whenever Sam came home from social events and lay on the couch like this, I'd rush to cover him with a blanket, worried he'd catch a cold. But now, I didn't want to move. I drafted my resignation letter, citing health reasons, and sent it to HR. The next morning, when Sam woke up from his drunken stupor, it was as if nothing had happened. He drove me to work as usual. He already had his own office, while I still sat in a cubicle. So when I went to HR to finalize my resignation, he had no idea. Chapter 4. After finalizing my resignation, I went straight home. It wasn't until Sam came to pick me up from work that he realized I wasn't at the office. He angrily called me. How could you skip work? I responded calmly. I didn't skip work. You came home last night and told me to quit my job so I could focus on getting pregnant. So I just followed your advice. Impossible. I would never tell you to quit. Sam exploded over the phone. My salary wasn't much, but he had factored it into our mortgage payments. Hearing him rage only made me speak even more gently. Last night, you came home after dinner at your mom's place and said that she called me a useless hen who can't lay eggs. You told me to quit. Don't you remember? He might not remember most of what I said, since I made it up, but the phrase useless hen was something his mother often called me. Feeling wronged, I added, last night, you were watching me send the resignation email. Did you forget? Sam was speechless. But why didn't you talk to me about it this morning? You were on the phone all morning, dealing with business calls. Did I even have a chance to speak? Anyway, I've already resigned. When you come home from work, there'll be a hot meal waiting for you, I said, having already bought groceries and cooked dinner, obediently waiting for Sam to come home and eat. Sam came back, still fuming, and complained. Resigning from your job is a big deal. Why didn't you at least discuss it with me? A tear welled up in my eye as I thought of how he always followed his mother's advice about not spoiling me. You hit me and forced me to quit, I said, lifting my pajama pants to reveal the red marks on my leg. I asked if we could talk about it, but you said you're the head of the household, and you make the decisions. I hit you? Sam stared at the red marks on my leg in disbelief. I nodded. Of course. It was the truth. I don't know what went through Sam's mind, but he softened and said, well, why don't you take a few days off at home before you look for another job? We're still young. We can think about having kids in a few years. I'll talk to my mom about it. What a kind and considerate man. Thank you, truly. Then I'll rest for a month before looking for a new job. I've been wanting to take a trip to Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand for a while now, I said, thinking how much I truly wished for Sam and his mother to be happily ever after. This was my most genuine thought. Before I met Sam, or rather, before I married him, my life was relatively carefree. I enjoyed a decent lifestyle, going shopping after work, taking vacations with friends during holidays, and relaxing. But after meeting Sam, my entire life revolved around him and our little home. My standard of living dropped lower and lower. Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand? That'll be expensive. Sam hesitated. Why don't you just go to Hainan for a few days? Or maybe one of those vacation resorts with a hot spring? Let me think about it. I'll find something fun and affordable. Now come and eat before the food gets cold. I called Sam to the table. He looked troubled. I knew he thought a month off was too long. I didn't plan on actually resting for a month either. I intended to spend this month starting at a new company. Right now, the most exciting view for me wasn't a tourist destination, but watching Sam's inflated ego get knocked down a peg. I can't believe he thinks there's another fool out there who would willingly sacrifice her own future to help him like I did. Chapter 5. The ripple effects of my resignation started to show the very next day. Sam, who never used his phone during work hours, sent me a message out of the blue, asking me to help him handle a document. Naturally, I pretended I hadn't heard. These documents were basic clerical tasks, things that Sam should have been able to handle himself, especially after his promotion. Some of them contained important business information that required his personal attention. When Sam was a clerk, he could barely manage the basic files. How was he supposed to handle crucial business documents now? Meanwhile, I had already made plans to meet up with a few friends for a spa day. My friend Amanda, sitting next to me, teased, "You're something else. You know that? Married for so long, and this is the first time you've invited us out." Camila scoffed. She only ever has eyes for Sam. There's no room for us in her life. Well, now that I've got some free time, I thought I'd reconnect with you all, I said, feeling much more relaxed thanks to the aromatherapy from the spa. It really worked wonders for me. Everything was perfect, except for the sudden ringing of my phone, which was a bit jarring. "Looks like your husband's entered his emergency call mode," Camila said sarcastically. "Put it on speaker so I can hear how much he can't live without you." I answered the call and, following Camila's suggestion, put it on speaker. "Miriam, did you see my WeChat message?" Sam said, sounding anxious. "Can you check it? I'm in a bit of a hurry." Camila and Amanda both wisely remained silent. "Oh, I didn't hear any message notification," I replied casually. "I'm not at home right now." "You know Camila, right? The cousin of your division manager's niece? She invited me to a spa day. She's sitting right next to me. Do you want her to say hi?" "And no, that's all right. You guys enjoy yourselves. I'll handle it myself." Sam stammered. Of course. He knew Camila as the niece of his direct supervisor. There was no way he could afford to offend her. "Say hi to Camila for me." Camila made a disgusted face, and Amanda quickly clapped her hand over Camila's mouth to stop her from making a sound. Sam hung up the phone reluctantly. As soon as the call ended, Amanda couldn't hold back her curiosity. "What's going on with you two? Something feels off." I shifted into a more comfortable position on the couch. "I quit my job. I told him I'm preparing for pregnancy. Do you believe that?" "Not at all." Camila immediately sat down next to me, her previously sarcastic tone gone. She looked at me seriously. "Have you finally come to your senses? Are you trying to find yourself again?" I had lost myself because of Sam, and apart from my family, it was my friends who cared the most about me. Camila, always outspoken, had warned me from the start that Sam wasn't marriage material. Unfortunately, back then I was so smitten by Sam's tenderness that I ignored not only my parents' advice, but Amanda and Camila's too. I've never truly lost myself. I've always known what I wanted. The difference now is that I see Sam for what he really is. What he showed me in the past was a carefully crafted act, and now I'm pulling the brakes before it's too late. I had been captivated by Sam's warmth and affection, but the moment he revealed his true face, I knew I had to leave. I'm not foolish enough to stay in a toxic situation. Then I'll have my uncle fire him right away. I've wanted to get rid of him for ages. Camila cracked her knuckles. Always the straightforward one. She never liked Sam and didn't hesitate to say it. "Don't." I quickly stopped her. Firing him now would be pointless. He hasn't made any mistakes at work yet, and if you fire him without cause, he'll play the victim. Chapter 6. After finishing my spa day and saying goodbye to Amanda and Camila, I went grocery shopping before heading home. As I cooked, I texted Sam, "I'm done with everything and back home now. Can you resend the file you sent earlier?" The signal was bad, and I didn't receive it all. Sam replied that he was working late at the office, handling it himself. I smirked and laughed to myself. Unbothered. Well, You go ahead and work overtime. I've decided to take your advice and go to that hot spring resort. The signal is even worse there. If I disappear for a month, Sam won't be able to reach me at all. After dinner, I casually booked a 1-month retreat at the hot spring resort online. Then, I pulled out my suitcase and started packing my valuables, personal documents, and some of my favorite clothes. Anything I could take. I packed whatever I left behind. I no longer cared for. I wasn't coming back to this house. The resort Sam suggested was part of a local leisure industry development, located on the outskirts of our city. It boasted beautiful scenery, hot springs, and all the amenities one could need, except for decent Wi-Fi. The signal was weak because the resort was nestled in the mountains. The safety signal code my brother and I had agreed upon was ultimately unnecessary. Once I moved into the apartment I had received as part of my dowry, I texted my brother, I've left the house I shared with him. When can I start at the company? Tomorrow. Bring your resume, and the position will still be clerical. He responded without hesitation. Where are you staying? I'll come pick you up and you can stay with me. Your place is too close to Mom and Dad's. If I stay there, there's a higher chance they or Sam might find me. I'm staying at the apartment Mom and Dad gave me as part of my dowry. I haven't told Sam about it. I gave him the address. The apartment was a fully furnished, move-in ready unit, and I didn't need to do much to settle in. Then I'm moving in too. I don't feel comfortable with you living alone, my brother said. True to his efficient nature, he quickly arrived with his luggage and a few workers who carried in some furniture and a fridge. My eyes welled up with emotion. Brother, what are you doing? This place is fully furnished. I don't need anything. He directed the workers to place the furniture in the guest room and the fridge in the living room. These are things I'm used to. If Mom and Dad end up staying here, they'll bring even more stuff. Let's not tell them for now. I don't want them to be stressed when I get married, and then worry when I'm getting divorced, I said, knowing that there was no point in arguing with him about moving in. He placed a laptop in front of me. Start working on your resume, and take some time to learn about our company. Sitting nearby with another laptop, he started handling some work. You're my sister, so you should know by now that I always keep work and personal matters separate. I know, I'm confident in my abilities. Even if it's just a clerical position, I'll do it well, I said as I opened the laptop and started working on my resume. I had casually set my phone aside, and when it rang, I didn't bother to check it. My brother glanced at the screen. It's Sam calling. What did you tell him? Have you already mentioned the divorce? No, I just quit my job and told him I was going to Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. He suggested I go to the hot spring resort instead, I said, picking up the phone and answering it. Chapter 7. But the voice on the other end wasn't Sam's, it was his mother. Her sharp tone cutting through the line. Sam works so hard. And you, as his wife, don't even come home to cook? What kind of daughter-in-law are you? Get home right now and make dinner. I work hard too, I reflexively defended myself. Sam and I were colleagues, and I often took on his workload. Then, after work, I'd come home and cook for him, and still, he would complain about being exhausted, spend his evenings glued to his phone. And I'd tolerated this for 2 years? You call that hard work? Do you work harder than Sam? Sam's mother's voice rose even higher. I've never liked you. Let me tell you that. Now hurry back home and cook for Sam. If he loses weight, I won't let you off the hook. Oh, I almost forgot to mention, I already told Sam I'm going away for a month. I'll be heading into the mountains soon, and the signal is really bad. Hello? Hello? Oh well. Goodbye. I hung up the phone, finally noticing I had unread messages. Is that how Sam's mom normally talks to you? My brother stopped working and looked at me, clearly displeased. I hadn't put the call on speaker, but Sam's mother's voice was so shrill that he could easily hear everything she said. Not really. We don't live together, and I rarely see her. It's only Sam who goes over to eat. My brother shot me a cold look. Good thing you came to your senses quickly. If you had blindly stayed with him, you'd have dragged the whole family down with you. I've woken up, haven't I? I tugged lightly at my brother's sleeve. When we were kids, I'd always tug on his sleeve when I wanted something or needed comfort. But after I got married, we rarely saw each other. let alone had moments like this. What had I distanced myself from my loving family for? All for a man who wasn't even worth it. I felt like crying. Before we got married, Sam had been kind and considerate, but after the wedding, every time I said something, he'd counter with, "My mom says." Before we got married, every weekend we would go to the movies, even though I always paid. I was happy to do so, but after we got married, though I still footed the bill, Sam seemed like a different person. He said, "My mom says going to the movies is a waste of money. Why don't we just watch TV at home? Your money needs to be planned for household expenses too." When we were in love, I used to buy new clothes frequently. After marriage, Sam said, "My mom says a woman only needs enough clothes to wear. Can you stop wasting money?" And that made you feel moved? My brother stopped working for a moment and ruffled my hair. "Now focus on those documents. No slacking. And don't think you can get away with it by acting cute. That's my brother. He says the toughest things, but in reality, he spoils me the most." I grabbed the laptop and started going through the materials. My brother's company dealt with similar business as my previous job. Thanks to Sam, I had become well-versed in this industry by handling all his paperwork. I also knew our former company's clients well. I had to familiarize myself with the client's information before preparing any documents, which was supposed to be Sam's job, but he dumped it all on me. From client data to crafting business plans and internal company strategies, I had mastered it all. If I were ruthless enough, I could use everything I know to destroy Sam, and maybe even land him in prison for years. But that's not my style. I'd rather knock him back down to where he belongs, face to face, and then walk away from him. With my brother's recommendation and my experience, getting hired as a clerk was going to be easy. Chapter 8. But I wasn't aiming to just be a clerk. I planned to spend this month putting myself on equal footing with Sam, or even surpassing him. Without me by his side for a month, I could already imagine the trouble he'd face. He was unfamiliar with industry data, didn't know the clients, and wasn't even aware of the company's internal plans. Sam called me constantly, sent texts, and bombarded me with messages on WeChat. The more frequently he reached out, the more passionate I felt about my work. Sam texted me, "Which folder is the company's procurement directory in?" I leisurely replied after work, "Drive D." He asked, "Honey, when are you coming home? It feels so empty here without you." He just wouldn't say, "I can't do this without you." And this was only day one. The next day, Camila called me, laughing hysterically on the phone. "You're Sam. How on earth did he get his current position? He's like a headless chicken at work. Even the newbies are more competent than him." "That's because it was me helping him all along," I said, feeling utterly embarrassed as I listened to her laughter. "You see what kind of man you chose? Let me tell you, with this guy, I don't even need to lift a finger. He'll manage to destroy himself." Camila, my best friend, was furious with me for choosing Sam. She even had a little resentment toward me because her cousin had chased after me for years, but I never paid him any attention. Instead, I fell for someone like Sam. All I could say was, "I know. I owe you an apology, all right?" Camila, unbothered, replied, "What's the point of saying that now? I'm telling you, you better not help him. Not even a bit. This guy can't even figure out how to look up the most basic data. He's just copying and pasting." Help him? I'm doing everything I can to avoid him. I booked a villa at the hot spring resort. Why don't you and Amanda go enjoy it? I've already paid for it, I said, sending her the online booking details. Don't let my money go to waste. At least you have some decency. But what's the deal with inviting just the two of us? Why aren't you coming? Camila grumbled. I need to focus on work for a while. Once my schedule normalizes, we can go back to our usual routine, weekend get-togethers and holiday travel plans. I said, why did I give up my perfectly pleasant, carefree lifestyle to get married? And to a man who couldn't say a single sentence without starting with, "My mom says." Amanda and Camila both had their own jobs, and we used to be inseparable, scheduling outings outside of work hours. Looking back on those days, it just brings me a flood of bittersweet memories. That night, after coming home, I soaked in the bathtub, enjoying a bubble bath, feeling relaxed and in a good mood. I picked up a call from Sam. Honey, still not in bed? Try to get off your phone for a bit and take care of yourself. I know your mom's probably making something delicious for you. Good night. Dear. Wait, honey. Before Sam could finish his sentence, I smoothly hung up the phone and happily resumed my bath. I didn't respond to any of Sam's texts after that. Life without Sam felt light and carefree. My job was relaxing, and even the competitive hiring process didn't faze me in the slightest. Suddenly, a message came in that made me laugh. Sam wrote, "Honey, where's your diamond necklace? My mom wants to wear it. You should just buy her a new one. As for my jewelry, of course I took it with me." I replied. I had taken everything I wanted, and I suspected that the mother and son duo hadn't yet realized I wasn't just on a simple vacation. Chapter 9. Sam responded, "Buying new jewelry costs money, doesn't it? You're just going to the hot springs. What if you lose it? It's my stuff. If I lose it, that's on me. You should get some rest. You've got work tomorrow. Don't forget about the mortgage, car payments, and your mom's social security, her mortgage, and her living expenses." I sent back, feeling quite satisfied as I put my phone down. Those expenses I mentioned could only be covered if both of our salaries were combined. Without my financial support, Sam wouldn't make it through this month. By next month, he'd be blacklisted as a defaulter. With his promotion and both our salaries, the three of us could have maintained a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. But Sam's ego had grown too large. He insisted that someone of his status needed a big house, a new car, and even bought his mom a home. All those costs were split between the two of us. Now, without my income, which will he miss first? The mortgage, the car payments, or his mother's social security and living expenses? Sam is a devoted son. After buying his mom a house, he not only took care of her social security payments but also gave her a monthly allowance. Despite how rarely he actually ate with her, after Camila and Amanda headed to the resort, communication became spotty due to the poor signal there. Even sending messages took some time. On the third day after I left home, Camila sent me a message. Sam made a mistake at work and got fined 2,000 yuan. 2,000 yuan isn't much, less than what I used to pay for my mother-in-law's allowance, but for Sam, who plans out every penny of his income, this fine was a significant blow. Suddenly, I thought of something. What if Sam tries to borrow money from my parents? I quickly sent them a message. "Mom, Dad, my mother-in-law is obsessed with buying health supplements, and Sam spoils her too much. No matter what reason they come up with, don't lend them any money. We're not actually short on cash." They each replied in turn, "This health supplement stuff shouldn't be bought. Why don't you try to talk some sense into them? They won't be able to buy anything if they can't borrow money. Just make sure you don't lend them anything." I quickly replied, "I know you two are doing fine. Don't worry. This kind of thing shouldn't be tolerated or encouraged." My parents reassured me, firmly agreeing not to enable my mother-in-law's obsession with buying supplements. With Sam's potential borrowing avenue blocked, I felt relieved. He didn't know many of my friends, and there was no chance Camila would lend him a penny. In fact, she'd be thrilled to see his salary docked and him out of our lives for good. Although Camila hadn't mentioned the details of Sam's work mistake, I could easily guess it was due to his unfamiliarity with the data. He had left all the work to me while he did nothing himself. It was too early to say serves him right, but that's exactly what was happening. At my brother's company, with my skills, I was thriving. Meanwhile, Sam wasn't doing so well. He started sending me messages, asking me to come back to work. He regretted telling me to quit. A few days later, he texted again, telling me he had failed to get promoted. Through his words, I could sense his frustration. He wrote, "Honey, now I realize how important you are to me." Chapter 10. I replied, "Don't be discouraged. There's always the next promotion. Keep it up." Sam responded with a long silence before saying, "Honey, you've had your fun. Now come back and help me." Wishful thinking. In my new work environment, I was already on track for a promotion thanks to my abilities. I absent-mindedly replied, "The hot springs are so relaxing." Then, his mother called, yelling at me over the phone, "The house is a mess. Sam is working so hard. And you're off at a hot spring? Get home right now. Do you hear me? Your parents gave you dowry money, didn't they? That's all Sam's. Hand it over immediately. Oh, the house can't even afford food without me? Do you want to pawn my diamond necklace? Suddenly, I remembered Sam asking me about my necklace. His mother didn't wear jewelry at all. What do you mean? Your necklace? You married into our family, so everything is Sam's. Her voice shrieked through the phone. Clearly, she had plenty of energy. The house wasn't falling apart. So I hung up, feeling more relaxed. At a bidding event in the same industry, I saw Sam. He looked nervous, standing at the edge of the aisle with a stack of papers, handing out brochures to passers-by. As the assistant for the bidding company, I walked past Sam, standing next to my brother. Sam was humbly handing out flyers to everyone, but when he saw me, dressed in a professional suit, his expression turned blank and bewildered. Miriam, why are you working for another company? I resigned. Didn't you know? I casually took one of the flyers from his hand and nodded at him. Keep working. I have things to do. My brother, sharp-eyed, glanced at me and Sam's interaction. The bidding is about to start, and this one is crucial. If we win it, our company will reach a whole new level. I smiled lightly. Boss, don't worry. I won't let work slip. Back when I worked at my old company, as a clerk, I was just like Sam today, handing out flyers at bidding events. At the time, he was standing on the other side of the aisle, and I was on this side. When we got tired, we'd sit in the safety stairwell, take a short break, and share a sip of water. Later, after we started dating, I took on most of his workload, and eventually, he kept getting promoted while I remained a clerk. Now, we were both standing in the same aisle again. He had returned to square one, doing the job he was doing when we first met, while I had become the bidding assistant to the boss. I walked into the bidding hall with my brother. Sam stared at me in a daze. The young man next to him, also handing out flyers, said, "Stop staring. That's a top business star from our company. She went from clerk to department head in a month and closed a ton of major deals. Her commission alone is enough to buy a villa in just 1 month." I wasn't going to tell Sam that the young man beside him was someone I had deliberately arranged to be there. I was worried that if Sam saw me, he might chase me down and cause a scene in the bidding hall, but I was overthinking it. Sam was a complete coward. Throughout the entire bidding process, he didn't make a single disruptive move. It seemed like he wanted to call me, but I had already blocked his number. I no longer responded to his messages or WeChat. When I decided to let go of this relationship and remove myself from his life, he became nothing more than a stranger to me. The young man standing next to Sam, handing out flyers, stayed with him until Sam finally stopped. The man then pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "Mr. Sam, hello. On behalf of my client, Ms. Miriam, I am serving you with divorce papers. In just 1 month. I showed him that I was doing far better without him. Without me, he was nothing.